John. Thanks for joining me this morning.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
So one of the things that I wanted to talk about, as collectors sort of get used to seeing us talk every couple of weeks about the coin market and where things are heading, is I wanted to sort of start to build a basis of like a philosophical basis by which we as professionals look at coins in the coin market, and to basically give a sort of intermediate and advanced collectors a deeper appreciation and insight for just how difficult it is to look at the coin market and to apply what we know as either traders or as people who analyze auction results and over-the-counter sales results, and to sort of see coins in a different way. So I wanted to start with what I think is one of the more challenging topics to start with, hubris as it might be. I wanted to talk about plus grades. Plus grades are a relatively new thing for the rare coin market. They were introduced a few years ago. Both major grading services use plus grades. CAC, which is, I would say, the primary second level of third-party grading, does not recognize plus grades. So there's a little bit of inconsistency there with the way the industry's grading companies deal with the topic. But plus grades are a reality. They're in every auction catalog. They are a grade that is desirable if you're submitting coins. And I wanted to look at how you view plus grades in regards to CDN, and also how you viewed them as a trader when you were at David Lawrence. So what do you think about plus grades, and what do they mean for a coin?
Well, it's an interesting topic, and I have an evolving theory about plus grades. When they first came out, and I'm trying to think of the year, it seems to me that it's been 5 or 6 years at least, maybe more, that PCGS had their big announcement. And at David Lawrence, we were invited by David Hall to actually submit an introductory batch of coins that they would check and see if any of them qualified for the plus grade. And I think of all the coins we submitted, the only one to make it was a 1901S quarter that we had just purchased from a stacks auction, an MS68, which is one of the most phenomenal coins I've ever handled personally, and it graded MS68 plus. And so it was really exciting because it was actually part of the initial PCGS launch program in the slideshow that this coin was in there. I mean, the coin, walked and talked and still does, I'm sure. So I was kind of there from the ground floor as far as that's concerned, and as dealers at the time, we thought, all right, this is great. I mean, this is it's an interesting angle, because now, from a dealer's perspective, you would have said there's some kind of interim grade where, it's really nice for the grade, and we can buy a coin for X, and instead of seeing it as exactly, what's the grade sheet bid is $1,000. Now, if it's a plus, it's somewhere between $1,000 and the next grade value, which could be $5,000. So where does that coin fit? And that gray area actually seemed like it had potential for adding value, and potentially profit and interest. So that's how we saw it perceptively in the beginning. And NGC did follow suit, I think, pretty soon or at the same time with the plus grades. And so over the years, the original promise of the plus grades that David Hall made that day I think he used the comic books, not the comic books, the ball card industry as an example, where they were using split grades, and they saw a lot of value in these split grades, for dealers and collectors and everybody to kind of gain some value in the fact that not everything is the discrete grade. What I've seen over the years, and it's evolved since I was at David Lawrence and now here at CDN, where I just observe the industry and try to evaluate things, is that we don't price and value plus coins here at CDN. I don't think there's a good reason to, even though I do get some requests from people. But it's hard enough to price all the coin grades that we do price today, and then to kind of interpolate what a plus might be worth. So we largely would tell people, in editorial form or otherwise, just like here on the podcast, that I would just say that a plus grade is, really subjective to the consumer, the buyer, whether it's a dealer or collector, to determine how plus the coin is. Is the coin a plus because it has great eye appeal? Is it a plus because it's really close to the next grade? What is it? But over time, I think what's happened is the best of the plus coins get cracked out naturally by the crack-out guys that are pretty savvy, and they say, well, if a coin grades 64.6, it's just close enough that the graders at PCGS couldn't determine if the coin makes the next grade or not, then those coins get picked off pretty quickly by the crack-out guys who work auctions in the floor and so on, and then they crack them out because, that coin gets presented again to the graders at PCGS or NGC, and even if it takes them 2 to 3 or 4 attempts, it's eventually going to find its way into the higher grade and therefore no longer be a plus coin. So what's left, inevitably, are the plus coins that really aren't that high end for the grade and maybe for some other reason got the plus. And so what's happened over time, in my opinion, is that they're really not ultra special. They're not that much more special than a non-plus. I find them to be subjective to, again, to the graders and everybody else. And so the best ones haven't been cracked out. And I've seen time and time again, as I, review coin pricing and auctions all day long. That's all I do here at CDN in terms of evaluating prices, is see how auction prices realized compare to the printed values we have, on top of other market factors like bidding and trades that are reported to us, that the plus coins generally do not exceed on a consistent level more than non-plus coins. So that's what's happened over the decade or so that these coins have been introduced. So I don't think the dream has fully been fulfilled as David Hall envisioned it.
Well, one of the things I think people have to take into account is PQ coins didn't become PQ coins just because somebody started looking for them. They were always PQ to begin with. And one of the things I think I would say the unfulfilled promise about certified coins, and this isn't really a knock against it, I think it was inevitable, is that you can't really commoditize a class of items where you have, on the one hand, a majority of the items are sort of, could be traded sight unseen or more or less similar. On the low end, you have the cruddy versions, and then on the high end, you have the snowflakes. I think if you look at a plus grade as a snowflake plus grade coin, those types of coins with spectacular eye appeal or color or some other factor, luster, whatever it is, are definitely susceptible of being cracked out. So I look at the plus grade for those coins as a transitional grade until it gets encapsulated in the last grade it should hold. If you look at auctions, I'm sure like you do, you see a number of these coins graduate from, let's say, a 5 to a 5 plus and to a 6. And and since profit typically is the motive for the crackout game, you're going to see these coins sold over the course of 18 months or 2 years. You'll see them again and again, especially the ones that are distinctive, like a tone 3-cent piece or something that has some standout character that when you do your search on either your Heritage website or Stacks or Great Collections or one of these major auction companies, you'll see these coins repeatedly appear. I looked at the plus grades at the beginning as sort of a way to cacify what was coming out of PCGS and NGC. Is that, as a dealer, did you see it that's the same way, to sort of a way to add an extra tier of service to sort of align what the grading services were doing with what CAC was doing already?
I think so. I think I completely agree with that. I mean, it's I think it was sort of CAC before CAC, in the sense that this started before CAC was formed, and I think that the grading services had this idea that not all coins in MS65 holders are equal, and how would we distinguish them? And I think there's a larger conversation with a decimal point grading system that is always being tossed about whether that makes any sense. The one thing I did not mention when you asked me about value and things like that was was that it's still significant. The most significant value add for plus coins today, I don't think is in the distinction of whether it has a supreme eye appeal or not or something like that, because collectors, they know beautiful coins when they see one, so they don't really need a plus to tell them that's that. But where it really, and I think this is, going back to David Hall's vision, was what I think is that is in the registry. So in the registry, the all-important PCGS and NGC registries that do dominate a large part of this market. So a plus coin doesn't necessarily matter in MS63 if we're talking about a coin that exists in pretty high population, 64, 65, 66. So the 63 plus, 64 plus doesn't matter because someone competing in the registry will just buy the higher grade. But where you really see things go crazy with plus coins is when it's the highest graded coin. So we see commems where there's no MS68s, MS67 plus coin goes bananas in an auction. So, or if there's one known MS68 coin, it goes from 5,000 in MS67 to 50,000 in MS68 because it's one known. An MS67 plus, that's a coin that can be worth $15,000, $20,000, right? I mean, that's a collector saying, I can't either afford that MS68 or I'll just may never be offered it. Yet having that coin makes it now second finest known or finest graded. So there's a lot of value added when it becomes pop top, and that is actually the best use case for the plus system, in my opinion, is as it relates to registry.
Well, let's go back a little bit to when you were a trader, and let's look at maybe one of David Lawrence's main specialties, which was barber coinage. Let's go back to the pre-plus period and look at the way you guys bought and placed coins in those series when they were PQ for the grade. Was the additional arbitrage that you could get for a super high-end coin similar to what we saw with the plus grades, as it's now reaching its maturity, or did that add additional value that you couldn't, as a nationally known specialist in that area, deliver on a coin when you were placing it in a very high-end collection?
Well, I mean, I think it's yes and no. I mean, I think to some degree that a specialist who's very knowledgeable in a certain area gets a lot of credibility when they discuss coins with their collectors. So, we would say, listen, I mean, I know more about barber quarters than anybody else. We bought and sold more than anybody, and this is the nicest 1898 barber quarter that I've ever handled. It's in an MS65 holder, but it's nicer than sixes I've seen, and therefore I want a premium for it. But that conversation is difficult because, we're a web-based economy, and it's hard to have that conversation. So the plus basically states that, or at least it's supposed to, right? The plus is supposed to say, this is a supreme coin. Maybe it's got a mark in a place where it shouldn't, and therefore it can never be an MS66, but it sure is one of the nicest 65s you're ever going to find. And I think that would be the ideal scenario for the plus system, where it's not like it's going to make the next grade. It's just that it's just the kind of coin that says, this is just better than most. And I think CAC came along and kind of with a similar but different philosophy as far as those things are concerned, and I think it's kind of taken over that space, as it were.
So when it comes to actually following the market and pricing things for your publication, you're obviously looking at a tremendous trove of data that's constantly being bombarded with. There's major coins that trade every day. There's major auctions that seem to come up every couple weeks. How do you factor in these plus coins when you're working on your data set?
To be honest with you, I ignore them. I do the same thing, and it's not because I ever discussed it with John Albanese, but I ignore the plus pricing mostly because it falls into two buckets. One is it really doesn't seem to add value. I mean, I'm just not seeing, especially in these coins that are in these grades where there's plenty of coins in the higher grade, so it's not a registry competitive item. So I basically look at a coin, and And if I didn't, you would actually see me lowering coins even more. Like I can't think off the top of my head of a Morgan dollar I was reviewing yesterday where, the plus coin is trading at gray sheet in an auction. It's a frosty white coin, probably a Carson City Morgan dollar, and it has a MS65 plus, and whatever gray sheet is, that's what the coin sold for. So if I had to adjust for it and say, well, that means we must drop gray sheet 20% if a plus coin's trading for 800, then therefore the non-plus must be worth less. So I don't take it into account because it would actually hurt the market. But like I said, I am not seeing a repeatable pattern where these plus coins are worth more unless they specifically help in the registry. So one of the holy grails of registry is the AU58 plus. There's these grading sets or circulating coins, and you and you're laughing because you know that there's people who will pay, an Indian cent, a 20th century Indian cent that's worth $40 in an AU58 plus, and it gets, an AU, it gets into an AU58 plus holder. It becomes the only one that can really elevate the person within the circulated set. And the AU58 plus trades for $1,000. We've seen this. It's a head scratcher. But people, but this is what collectors do. They get competitive and they want to win, and it's fun. I think it's fun. I think it's fun when collectors get involved. But, it's certainly caveat emptor as far as spending that kind of money. But that's where the value is different. So that's where we're seeing the numbers go nuts when it's the top for a category within the grading. And, I imagine if they ever had a minus grade, that the fair 2 or something, a fair 2 minus would be, for people going for the lowest set, would also be competing and paying moon money for something.
Well, if you want that AU58 plus coin, all you have to do it cheaply is take out a choice coin and play with it a little bit.
Yeah, but it's arbitrary because people believe me. There's that people have definitely figured that part out, except for it doesn't work. You can take an MS63, Morgan dollar and rub it a little bit. It's obviously a choice uncirculated coin with rub on the high point. You send it to PCGS and it gets AU58. You're getting that plus. No one knows the magic of getting that AU58 plus. They are very, very rare, and they go for a lot of money.
Well, does that speak to the inconsistency of the application of plus grades in general, that would be so difficult to achieve?
Yeah, I think so. I think that there's not enough rhyme or reason to it. There's not enough explanation as to what a plus really means. And as I said, I mean, when it's really a PQ++ coin that just misses that grade, it gets cracked out until it makes that grade, which, as you know, is the gravity of of grading. Grading is always, coins will always be resubmitted until they meet their natural highest grade. That is the way things work in our market. And plus coins get cracked out faster because they naturally would draw the attention of someone who's looking to go through 10,000 lots in a heritage sale and wants to make sure he looks at the best coins. He's going to start with plus, he's going to start with the pluses. He's going to look at cat coins. He's just going to, look at those with more scrutiny, thinking that other people have also thought they were very nice coins. But anyway, the one other thing I wanted to mention was the fact that when the coins do go for a lot of money, and this is what people sometimes will also argue with me on pricing, is I call them outliers. So if I think an AU58 plus that sells for $1,000 when it's worth $100, I'm not affecting the gray sheet on that value either. That's an outlier the way we see things, and so we try not to let the registry momentum truly affect our pricing in general, if we think it's a really thin market there.
Well, talking about like the way the market reacts to some of these coins, especially when the registry is involved, or when the next half step up, there's a significant difference in value. Do you think it's safe for most collectors to assume if they're seeing a plus graded coin enter into the market where there is a tremendous upside, that it's already been scrutinized and looked at by a crackout type of specialist for consideration of buying the coin, taking off the market, and continuing the process until they get it into that holder? Or are there opportunities for collectors who have good grading eyes to pick up plus coins and look at them as having the potential for extra value due to that process?
Well, I don't know. That's kind of again, I think that's almost another topic altogether that we could talk about for a good while. How does a consumer really feel about the coins they're buying versus their maturity, as it were, in the grading system. But I don't really know. I think that would vary from consumer to consumer. I would say that it's a fairly level playing field in a sense that if you go to auctions and you go to trade shows and you're a sophisticated coin collector with a good eye, that you have about as good a chance as anybody with a good eye to spot undergraded coins or not. And so that becomes technical ability, and we've seen collectors become coin dealers based on that technical ability, and we've seen coin dealers fall by the wayside because their technical ability wasn't as good as it needed to be to survive. So, I think there's a lot of transparency in the industry as far as that's concerned. I think that, and you never know when you're buying at auction or from a dealer. A lot of dealers, smaller dealers, pick up good collections from their customers. There was a Barber half set recently that was sold into the market. A beautiful circulated set, and we know the coins. It was advertised as the coins having been off the market for a long time, and collectors, they were priced aggressively so that dealers probably didn't want to play, and collectors knew, had an instinctive sense that the coins they were buying maybe weren't completely maxed out and they were fresh and so on, and that's why old-time collections that come to market always do well because people can feel the freshness, and it's not, retreads, as we might say, coins that have been on the market that a savvy person could go through and see they've been in a 64 plus, and now a 65 holder. So I think that's incumbent on the individual and their knowledge and how and some people just don't care. I just think that some collectors don't care about all that noise. They just want to enjoy their collecting.
Yeah, and in that respect, I think that's the thing too. I mean, I think using price guides as guides is what they're intended to be, but not necessarily the final word on how you make your own personal decisions is imperative because, I know as somebody who I consider myself a fairly sophisticated collector, and if there's something I really want, the price guide it's a nice fact pattern. It's a nice thing I could bring up to the dealer, but I know that if there's something that's really desirable, that's very scarce, doesn't come around much, has very limited availability, that the price I'm willing to pay oftentimes exceeds what's been published. And the key is to try to work out the best arrangement for you so you get the coin, but you have to understand sometimes you have to step up to the plate and you have to exceed that. And if it's a truly nice coin, then there is no number that anybody's obligated to sell the coin to you for.
Absolutely. Again, another, if you're building a nice list of things for us to talk about, that's another one is, what are coins worth and what are price guides good for, and, but you're absolutely right. Price guides are simply guides to help people, think about, and to have a conversation with a seller. A buyer and a seller need some kind of baseline to have a conversation, and the seller says, I want X for my coin, and the buyer says, why do you want X? And he says, because Graysheet says it's worth Y. And I don't care what Graysheet says, I still want double Graysheet, and you can't find another one, and at least they have something to talk about. So that I try to tell people that the Graysheet is not the end all, or it's just the beginning of a conversation, and, coins are only worth what someone is willing to sell them for and what another person is willing to pay.
Right. Yeah, and absolutely, and I think as a collector, the best service you can do for your own collecting is to buy the coins that, as an informed buyer, buy the coins that truly appeal to you and have great eye appeal or great character. Because if you really love a coin and you're properly educated about it, odds are that that next buyer who's going to be interested in buying your coins is going to see what you saw in them. If you go in there and you just try to to budget build a set, based on the cheapest coins you can find at the grade, I mean, you're likely going to have coins with problems or coins that they just can't compare to other coins in the marketplace, and then you're probably going to be disappointed when you try to find a new home for them. Well, John, I appreciate your time. I look forward to talking to you in a couple weeks. Maybe we can break down what's happening in the Morgan dollar market and talk about other topics. I think both CDN subscribers and CoinWeek listeners are going to get a lot of value out of our conversations as we sort of break down things in a more informal way than you might get on the printed page. But it's been a real pleasure talking to you about plus grades.
Yeah, likewise. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to talking to you again soon.
Cool. Take care, John.
Okay. Thanks.